Welcome to Positive Caffeinated. First episode. My name is Tish Burke.
My name's Camden, and today we're going to be talking about what got us started with coffee.
Our love for coffee.
Yeah.
I think my first experience was, for me, what I remember about my first experience was going to my grandparents, your great-grandparents, clearly. And my grandma used to always take care of my grandfather. Since he'd have a big lunch because he worked in the steel mill, and she would pack his lunch. But she always made breakfast, so she would, have coffee. At the time, I didn't really know. I just remember the smell of it and the big metal can, which later on was Folger,
Is she put it in that giant
like percolator.
Well, I was gonna say they used to have the old, so they, there's the Stanley cups that are popular now.
Yeah.
But they had the really old Stanleys that had like the cup on them that a lot of people use.
No, these ones where you put the coffee at the top, you put the water in, you put the coffee in this little basket at the top, and had a little.
It's like portable.
It's like the crafts we have today.
Okay.
The crafts, and then what you do is you put the water in first, put the grounds in this little basket at the top, and then put the top on. And then what happens is the water boils and percolates on top, and you see this little clear thing at the top.
Okay.
And you see coffee like you see it inside the machine because it's all metal. It was called a percolator. And then she just turn it, unplug it, dump in his big thermos or give him a cup and so forth. And I just remember his big green thermos, his big old
thermos. Do you remember if the thermos was a Stanley? Because
yeah. It was. I could say it was a Stanley for sure, but it sure looked like one.
Yeah.
It was a big metal one, big green.
The cup on top, right?
I just remember. Later on,
I think I actually have one still.
Remember the show called The Munsters, that TV show, and what was the guy, main character? He used to have a big thermos he'd take out front. That's how my grandpa was looking up. His was green. And so she put his thermos in there, sandwiches and all that stuff. And then he got the door. My grandpa was pretty small. He was like 5'3", 5'4", something like that. But just in his big old metal case of food and so forth and his coffee. But the smell in the house was always that smell, which I didn't really resonate. But then when I got coffee myself, it kind of.
Didn't she say that you didn't like, I remember this. Obviously, they're not going to know. But you told me, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that you didn't actually drink coffee until later. You didn't drink coffee as a kid. It was later when you were an adult that you actually, so why? So your initial passion for coffee was from your grandparents, but you didn't actually start drinking coffee until
in my probably mid-20s, maybe. And I think that it started because my friend I was playing music. My friend had a place called Cafe Lattes in Hollywood. That's where I roast. So that's where the whole place started from. Coffee, roasting coffee, and all those pieces.
So before that, you were just caffeineless.
I was caffeine. I was probably some of the followers who watch it.
Like, oh, Coke. Okay, I thought you were gonna be like Red Bull or something.
No.
Oh, okay, excuse me. People still
of.
do that. Still, they drink coffee, or they don't drink coffee. They just drink a bottle of Coke or Pepsi or Diet Coke.
And it's just that's what he always used to drink. He used to drink three like 16 ounces of Pepsi in the morning.
Oh, that's crazy.
With a donut. What was your first encounter with coffee?
Well, my first encounter with coffee was, obviously with you guys. I think, Mom always had coffee in the morning. Yeah, and little not well-known secret, I think you guys don't even know. I actually started bringing Mom coffee because I wanted to try the coffee.
Gotcha.
So I was like, oh, I'll make the coffee. Don't worry. I'll make the coffee for it. Yeah, I thought it was good. But it wasn't until high school, I think, that I really had, it was more, for me, coffee was more about the energy, I think. And there was something about, kind of the same as you, like the smell of the coffee in the morning, and kind of that like daily ritual kind of became where my passion for coffee kind of came from, which is that like building that morning routine of like every day I do this, and then I do this, and then I do that. And there was something in making the coffee. Yeah.
Structure and making a coffee, and the structure how you conducted your
and I think
routine.
Also there's a part of it that was like, I'm an adult now. I drink coffee,
Yeah.
It's like in high school I could drive my car, I had my mug of coffee, and I go to
think you said that.
Go to high school, and I was like, cool.
I was wondering if I must have sipped like my grandpa, because he was known to give us sips of like beer and things like that. So he must have probably saw us and like, oh, you want a sip of the coffee? But I don't recall it. I don't recall drinking like my first cup of coffee, but I probably did. I don't know if my brothers and sisters remember, but yeah, I'm sure that was part of it. I just remember the smell. I just remember the smell in the kitchen because the kitchen was right there, and then they had the four top table. Think about in the 60s and 70s, right? 70s probably. Um, but sitting at the table and the smell of it, and them doing their morning routine, which was always kind of the same. Or if you stayed over at their house and so forth.
What was their morning routine?
My grandma would get up early. She'd make eggs, bacon, the whole kit caboodle, kind of the
Pleasantville
70s.
breakfast.
Pleasant, probably. Had the coffee going. You'd smell it in the room, and then hear them talking. Grandpa's talking, and then get out of bed and go to the kitchen. And she'd have a plate full of bacon, egg, pancake, or whatever it was that she was doing. There was always a full meal. It wasn't like today's days, but it was all routine because he had to be out the door. I want to say like 5.
Really? So they were up at like 3?
I would say she's probably up 3 or 4, probably
Wow.
4. 'Cause I think he
Thought
had to
you
be
were
out
like
at 5
7.
because he had to drive and his day started, I think, at 6:37. Well, in the early days, he worked at the mill. And he left the mill and went to selling insurance to the folks at the mill, life insurance and things like that. But no matter what, he was always out, even though even those days, he stays a little later. But yeah, that's the routine. And, she'd stay over the house, she'd take grocery shopping, or they had a little farm or a little garden in the back of the house and stuff like that. So pick things like that.
Is that where your routine? Because I know when, I was a kid, at a certain point, I think you always did it. I think I just didn't notice it until later. But yeah, you'd always get up in the morning. For me, it was ungodly hours of the morning.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Definitely. We were, all of us still, because, Artie's doesn't know that I'm from a family of 8 children. Our morning routine was really early. We got up at 4:00, have to get out there, we deliver newspapers, or we started early, and then, finish the day. Our days, we were probably, especially during the younger days, we were in bed by no later than 7 or 8 because, we're getting up at 4:00, deliver your morning routine, breakfast, do all this stuff, and then walk to school and all those things. My mom and dad didn't really drink a lot of coffee either. My dad did, I think, drink some coffee. But again, I don't remember my grandparents drinking more, but my dad must have drank coffee. I don't recall.
That's interesting.
I know. I don't recall. I remember Folgers in my house, but I don't remember like that routine like you're talking about. I remember my grandparents. Maybe my son, my brothers and sisters do. I just don't recall that being. I remember getting up early and doing all those things. I just don't remember us. Nowadays it'd be like, okay, we gotta have a coffee before we roll out of bed.
Yeah.
I don't remember those things. My mom wasn't in bed waiting for a coffee. She was out there. Just different time periods, different things. But all connected with coffee. I think that's the key thing is be a coffee. But I think that's where, for a lot of people, I'm assuming, we can ask our audience for feedback, but the story of coffee, how it relates to them, is probably something to do with a connection with either a family member or something related to their, what you call it, like your lifestyle.
So I remember, when I was a kid, were you drinking coffee before? Because I remember at one point, we would go running together at like, I want to say 5 a.m. ish.
I probably had some coffee before that.
Yeah. Okay.
And then I went to coffee, and then later on I go to espresso, because that's what I drank a lot of in the stores and stuff like that. Espresso, not so much. I didn't make so much espresso at home till later on. I think I had 1 or 2 different variations of espresso machines. It's just the time it takes to make a good espresso.
Yeah.
It's a little more tedious than just getting the coffee machine ready at nighttime and then pushing a button in the morning.
Well, I feel like you were usually out the door. Not as early as your grandpa, but you're usually out the door by like 7:30 maybe.
Well,
before school.
Yeah, before you guys were around, because I had to drive about an hour and a half to get to in California to locations. Yeah, it was probably I was out the door probably 5:30, something like that, to get to work. I always like to get to work early anyway. So, because office is quiet, my music on, and then people start hustling by 8. So, but again, coffee company, it's like it's always around coffee. Yeah.
I think for me, I mean, my morning routine honestly has changed over the years. It's kind of gone through a lot of different phases where when I was younger, I was just like, oh, I'm going to sleep in. If I could sleep in every day when I was younger, if I could sleep in until like 9:30, 10, I was good. I was golden. That was like
What kind of school is that?
I know. I think that's why.
30?
Was it like 7:30? I always had to get up at like I consider ungodly, but I was probably getting up at like 6:30 ish, give or take.
Sure.
I remember I started doing dual enrollment at my high school, and then I could sleep in. I could sleep in till 8:30, and it was the best. It was like I had like special privileges. I would like walk in there with my big cup of coffee because I was like, I'm an adult now. I could drive my car. I got my coffee. I'm like going to work with the other folks. I'm in the traffic. I'm experiencing traffic. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to work.
And you're loving it as at that age.
Oh, at that age, I was loving it because I didn't actually have to do it.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Yeah.
Work.
Yeah. I was disillusioned.
All about perspective of, but I think that's where coffee, as far as coffee, I think is symbolic to a lot of people, is because it is about a connection. Because they, I'm sure we're doing an episode on, but the emotional connection to coffee. There's something about that, be it coffee and other things, but there is always that distinct difference of why is coffee's been around for a long time. So what is that link to people emotionally about coffee? They have to have, people that, that's the first thing. They can't operate without having a cup of coffee.
Well, that's what I was gonna say is, when I was a kid
That's
or
not me.
whatever, obviously I was getting up to do those runs and stuff with you without caffeine. But at some point, I think, kind of what you're saying is at first it was an emotional thing. It was like, this is the morning, this is what you do.
Yeah.
And then eventually it became like, oh my gosh, I feel so energized. I feel so good
Right.
when I have this coffee. So now I can get up, earlier or whatever and achieve more kind of. But yeah, I think
coffee.
as it was initially, so it was coffee, and then I started going like energy drinks for caffeine. I did like the Monster. I did a lot of Monster for a minute when I was in high school because I was like, oh, it's cool. I'm gonna go to the gas station at 4 in the morning, getting my Monster and going going to school.
We're really coffee. We ready now?
All right, hold off. What was I saying?
You say Monster drinks and all that.
Oh yeah, I was having Monster, and then I transitioned back to having coffee, and that's when I started getting into transitioned away. I think a lot of people do this is they transition. So it's the emotional, and I'll probably have an episode on this, but there's the emotional, and then there's the energy behind coffee that you get. And then I think for some people, like the originally, the morning routine is the process of making the coffee is like somewhat therapeutic. Like there's a, something in the steps, I think, at least for me, in specifically making French presses. So yes, let's try the coffee now.
Well, one of the things as I'm pouring this too is that, put that mic down there. Hear the sound of it. Oh, jeez.
No, you gotta press that down.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
New thing.
Like, what the heck? I was saying, and then beyond that is put your cup there, my friend. And then the other thing is, I think, is the connection, right? The connection with other humans. So
yeah,
and we'll probably do an episode on that, but that's again the distinct flavor and texture and knowing I'm gonna meet someone for a cup of coffee.
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think coffee's always clearly both of us have worked for major coffee companies, and I distinctly remember that being probably the first time where it was like, other than when you and me sat down and had coffee, but with my boss during the interview, that like the first cup experience where you'd sit down with your boss and you'd kind of be like, you pour a cup of coffee together and kind of talk about what you taste, what go through the whole process of tasting coffee. And I remember that being a very but yeah,
I think, but I like I said, we'll probably do an episode on this. I think it's important, but overall, I think, whatever it is for, our folks watching this, I think the cool thing is that coffee is what it's personal. It's what you make of it, so be it the ritual routine, like you said, the connection, how you, wake up with the caffeine or whatever it is. And it's evolving too. I mean, as a beverage itself. So it's gonna be exciting to talk more about that in other episodes about caffeine and coffee and now it's being, changing over period of time too.
Yeah, no, I think also not even just coffee. I mean, there's a lot of, people are, there's like, we're seeing almost like I think I think now more than ever, we're kind of seeing a renaissance as far as the variations and options you have for caffeine in the morning. You
Right.
have, your matcha, you have there's the new mud coffee, which is like mushroom coffee.
Right.
But there's like so many different variations out there.
Adding
And
so much to them now.
I think,
Yeah.
we'll probably explore those and just see, the difference between coffee and these other caffeine sources and, how they affect you and, that kind of stuff as well.
At the end of the day, it's always good to have a nice cup of coffee.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, it's always good to, sit down in the morning and we'll be here to kind of fuel your morning and talk about, not only caffeine, but also, kind of the positive things going on in the world as far as, the good,
Yeah, positive things going on, I think, in the world, but also positive things that are going on in our life, and you know, on the farm now, and how we're adapting to that, and the whole adventure that we're on right now, so which is very exciting and very scary at times because a
definitely.
lot of changes happening. But when you're living on 16 acres and whole different environment, it's
Well,
gonna be different.
yeah, and I think for those of you tuning in to the audio version of this podcast, I think, obviously you've probably heard the wind and you may have heard the bees and stuff,
Yeah,
and you're hearing all these noises and stuff. And, we are actually out on our property here. My father has his own roasting business. We're calling it Lavender Hill Springs. That's what this farm is. We have lavender, bees, and a roastery. If you He's been in the coffee industry. I mean, I'll let him kind of
yeah,
speak to that if you want to.
yeah, idea.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if you we'll probably
you're doing
we'll
well.
probably have a whole episode about him and his coffee experience. But
Well, probably over 40 years.
you know, he has gained enough experience. Let's just say this: he's gained enough experience over his lifetime to start roasting his own coffee. And if you'd like to support our journey and you like this podcast and you want to hear more, it would be a blessing if you guys appreciate good coffee, if you'd like to go purchase a bag from our Facebook page, that goes a long way to support fueling this journey and fueling this podcast. So
Mm.
we'd appreciate it.
I think in the future, you have the opportunity to support us and support this journey with us. And we want to hear what your thoughts are as well, but we'll have the opportunity to be, buy us a cup of coffee, I guess you say,
Yeah, yeah,
and be a
definitely.
sponsor for us. So more to come on that as we start this again. This is our first podcast and our first experience in this, but we're eager to share our journey because I think that if you're sharing it and really kind of talking, really
Yeah,
about
yeah.
what's happening. I think that helps others in their own vision, their own dreams. I think that's that positive we're talking about is, there's unlimited possibilities for each of us. Like I said, there's great things that I'm sure many of you are listening to this are doing. We always want to expand on that and continue to settle in a spot where we're sharing our experience, but more importantly, putting positive energy out into the universe and allowing that to be absorbed by others as well.
Well, I think, one more thing I want to touch on too is like we want you as the listener to, feel like you're a part of these conversations, these morning
Definitely.
conversations. Like if you don't have, that person to sit down, if you really enjoy coffee and you don't have that person sit down with you, we want you to feel like you are a part of our table and our discussion here. And we want you to, we want to hear your thoughts. And if you want to, comment in, I'm sure we'll have, guests, people come on the podcast and so forth to kind of speak to their
Yeah.
own coffee journeys and
Yeah.
so forth.
Experience.
Uh,
That's why we
but
have a seat at the table, empty seat.
yeah,
Seat right here. Or maybe two, but at least one
I
to join us
think
for
one's for the
coffee.
mic. But yeah, I think we'll probably just close out this episode kind
Yeah,
of
this is
talking
great.
about the French press that we just poured, kind of, go through the coffee tasting process, which I don't know, for those of you who have never done the coffee tasting process, I think the steps, if you want to speak to that, your 40 years experience,
Yeah.
sir.
I guess a couple things. A lot of coffee companies do it different variations, but the key thing about coffee is, we taste coffee through our nose. First thing that we always want to do is just smell the coffee when you get it. And again, there is no right word, there is no right thing for the person, but what you're doing is basically activating your taste buds because you're smelling the coffee. So whatever that is for you, if it's nutty, whatever you kind of puts a mindset and also
Mm.
gets you when you're smelling it. kind of, if you keep cup your hand around it, kind of take it all in, it kind of sets the mood for how you're going to taste the coffee. So the next thing you do is just sip it or taste it, slurp it, whatever the word you want to use. Let it linger on your tongue, and you're just trying to figure out, where's it land on your tongue? What do you like about it? What do you don't like about it? And that's kind of that coffee experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then nextly, usually 90% of, we don't have anything here this time, but usually 90% of people who drink coffee usually eat something with it.
Mm-hmm.
Either buy something or bring something with them. So you take a sample of that and then you drink the coffee again.
So this coffee that we poured today, do you want to talk a little bit about it?
This is Colombian coffee. This is our Colombian brew, and it has a very dry roast. And you know, we usually, as you can see, these fabulous no-name bags that we have on our table. We do have labels too, but you know, we roasted this, and they come in ground or whole bean, 9-ounce bag, 9-ounce ounces in each bag. And this is our Colombian coffee, which has this naturally kind of herbal taste to it, fruitiness, kind of dried fruits, I'd say. And that's what I like about it. It just kind of brings out that kind of wininess, but really kind of fruitiness to the palate based on the roast, and just a full, well balanced cup. Really enjoy it. How about you?
I definitely agree. I can definitely taste the nutty flavors. I will say, you know, and obviously with different brewing methods too, you have different results. I
True.
feel like as far as the
Yeah.
coffee goes, and I
Yeah.
think French press usually offers, as I find it to be smoother. I guess in my opinion, I think it's usually, um, I don't know if I could really put a like proper phrasing to it. I don't know why. I'm always between French press or a pour over. I think those are probably my two favorite ones. I've never had Turkish, so we'll have to try that on an episode.
Yeah.
But I think I can definitely taste the nuttiness. For my taste buds, at least, I would actually say that it does taste a little like lighter in body.
Okay. Is it
Me.
heavy? Is it heavy in your tongue, you think? Or is you're saying when you light, is this kind of it just kind of goes over it, and it's it's just a good cup, or it's just a more neutral cup. So if it's bolder, usually bolder or darker roast, what people like is the heaviness that lingers on your tongue.
I would say this is probably smoother,
So
lighter,
lighter, yeah.
and definitely nutty. I can taste the
Right.
nuttiness, and I think you can
Dry
actually
nuts, yeah.
smell kind of the fruity aroma from
Yeah.
the coffee.
Yeah, I think it's good. It's a good morning cup of coffee. We don't have any cream and sugar, and not that you can't put cream and sugar on it. I always tell people too is with the pastry and so forth, that is usually your sugar, your all that in the pastry. You don't really need to put cream and sugar in it. The reason
Yeah.
people do is
Yeah.
because it's either been taught to them, or they think it's too strong, or they don't have the right coffee taste. They didn't select the right coffee. Because really, if the coffee, I believe, is that if the coffee is well balanced for your palate, you don't really need to add sugar or cream into it. But that's just my personal preference. But I do encourage you, get your favorite pastry, get your cup of coffee, and do kind of smell it, slurp it, taste your pastry, and you would taste totally different than what you expect it to be. So it's amazing when you kind of just get more into the coffee experience. Nothing wrong with cream and sugar.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
but,
Well,
you know,
maybe we
or
have our own
flavors.
honey too.
Yeah,
so-
yeah,
Hey,
flavors
we'll
and
try that
honeys,
out too
whatever.
and see.
Yeah, but all of it's, at each level is kind of masked some of the things. I'm glad you brought the methods, because I too believe that, outside of the cupping method, which most roasters do, the French press is probably the most authentic taste profile, because each method, and I know we're talking about different episodes, but we're talking about different methods.
Yeah, definitely.
But the different methods also change the taste, like you said. If we were tasting a brew coffee versus a French press or a pour over, each of them would be the same coffee, roast the same way, but each of them will bring out different characteristics, which is what's cool about coffee, because you can have those conversations.
That is very cool.
Well, cheers
Cheers.
to our first episode.
First episode. Thank you guys for tuning in.
Really good.
This has been Positively Caffeinated. We'll see you next time.